Hello, good morning and welcome, and what a very different view of Le Mans this Saturday morning, and what a very different month as well in September. And you may be forgiven for thinking that around midnight Central European summertime, summer finished. It started raining then, finished about 7 or 8 this morning, and the track here at Le Mans is wet. In fact, it was very, very wet indeed for our Porsche Super Cup and Carrera Cup race that has just finished. And the safety car was scrambled not once but twice, and the race started under safety car. We are ready now for the first track action of the weekend. Saturday and Sunday starts with this 15-minute warm-up. I'm Martin Haven. Joining me in the booth, Graham Goodwin and Jamie Campbell-Walter. And Jamie, to quote a man that you know as well as many, Hugh Chamberlain, nothing good ever happens in warm-up. This is the first time the cars will have been out on a wet track, and the potential for a major disaster is much greater than anything you could possibly learn, isn't it?
Yes, it's every single team manager's nightmare. The drivers will have had a really good talking to this morning, and the team managers would have said, guys, we just want to check the engines, the new installations of all the fuel lines, oil lines, water lines, gearbox, all the running gear. We want to check the systems for the live telemetry, etc., etc. Probably might cycle through all 3 drivers because rain is expected in the race, whereas normally I think just one driver would do the warm-up.
Well, would you do that, or would you just say the only person going out in warm-up is the guy who's going to start the race, because he's the first man that's going to need to know? And 15 minutes, that's time for, not really even time for 1 lap per driver, is it?
I think it depends on your lineup. So Toyota, etc., with pro lineups, I think it will just be 1 driver. You got 3 AMs?
Well, let's look at classes where we've been told AMs are going to start. In the LMP2, for instance, Racing Team Netherlands have said Frits van Aert is due to start the race. I think that would be a mistake on their part, and I'm not sure that he would say, I really absolutely have to start. I mean, we don't know what the race is going to be like to start. It could be dry, could be soaking wet. I would be definitely looking at taking your pro drivers in LMP2, in GTE AM, and making them the nominated starters while you can. But Graham Goodwin, it's a very different Le Mans in so many ways. I know that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who might otherwise be here are having to watch us on TV or online and wishing they were here.
Absolutely. We wish you were here as well. It of course adds enormously to it, but stick with it, because I do think it's going to be a cracker of a race. One quick update, by the way. The provisional grid now shows Guido van der Garde starting the 29 car, so that must have changed. But well, one car we're absolutely desperate to see this morning is a 62. That's the Red River Sport car. That's shunted in the final night practice with Bon Grimes, who's absolutely fine, by the way, but significant damage to the front of that car. Didn't see it all yesterday. That car should be out today.
Well, the second IDEC Sport car as well, in fact, the one that crashed first, their 28 car, the red car, that was more heavily damaged, that had to have a whole new chassis, or a replacement chassis at any rate. There are no new Orica chassis at the moment. That had a replacement chassis. That was a long rebuild. 17 was ready yesterday, so that will go out, but we hope to see all of our 59 cars on track, because, yeah, it's a very truncated business this weekend. There's Eduardo Freitas chatting to Lisa Weishart. Beside him, that is the nerve centre of race control, and I think they are anticipating a very busy day today.
You mentioned the 17 IDEC Sport car. Dwight Merriman stepping out of that car for Patrick Pilet. Was hearing yesterday, fairly significant, there's I think a fractured vertebrae for Dwight, which you know all about, I'm afraid. Jamie, from your time in...
Yes, I do.
Was it Monza?
Monza 2008. Yeah, I had a wishbone fail going into the second chicane at Monza. In qualifying it was, and I managed to break 5 vertebrae.
That was good effort. Dear me, car got airborne. I remember seeing the shots. It didn't look nice.
No, it wasn't a very spectacular crash actually, but just a head-on boom. At Monza, you're going pretty quick.
And that's not a, I'll have a couple of Nurofen and shrug it off.
No, no, it was the first round of, was it LMS then?
I think it was, yes, LMS. I think it was LMS, yes.
Le Mans Series, and that was round 1 qualifying. I didn't make it back into the car until Petit Le Mans some 9 months later, or 8 months later.
What you're trying to tell us subtly is it's a bit hurty.
A bit hurty.
The first 3 months were challenging, let's put it like that.
That's a great word, challenging. He's got that face on that says, shut up now, Goodwin, and let's move on. But all I would say here, Dwight, if you're listening, if you're looking in, heal up soon, and we hope to see you back here to start the race we know you wanted to in the first place. Pit lane, and things are beginning to hot up.
Yeah, everybody getting ready to go out at 10:30. And see, now this is one of the little details you never think about. You've got these super fine soled shoes.
This is race control. I hope you can all read me loud and clear.
Yeah, so the mechanic there.
The warm-up of the 88th edition of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Track has been declared wet, although it's drying quite well. All cars with rain lights on at low power, please. Again, track limits are to be respected. Do not forget to turn on Discord so that you can Discord with us. And I will come back to the frequency before the session starts.
Very good morning, bom dia, to Eduardo Freitas, who, as our race director, is always, he has one thing uppermost in his mind, that nobody gets hurt on his watch if he can possibly avoid it.
As calming and as stabilising as a cup of milky tea. Oh, stop.
No, no, Eduardo would not like a cup of milky tea.
I didn't say he would. But, yeah, the...
Man of Le Mans, Sébastien Bourdais.
Yes.
Absolutely. Three men of Le Mans here. Julien Canal,
yes.
Vincent Capillaire and Seb Bourdais. I had a long chat with Seb for the podcast yesterday, and looking forward to this one.
Yeah, he was chatting with his teammate Jules Gounon, a Bentley factory driver, and drafted into the Risi team for Le Mans.
There's Patrick Pilet aboard the number 17 car with his painted weathered helmet.
And this, Graham Goodwin, is the first time since when that he will have driven anything in a race other than a Porsche?
2007, I think he stepped out of Formula 3.5. He has driven a prototype. He tested, I think I'm right, that the Porsche factory team tested most, if not all, of their GT factory drivers
the
919 to determine who would get the Le Mans drives in 2015, as well as, in fact, that was the point at which Mark Lee was added to the factory LMP1 efforts. So he did test the LMP1 car, but I don't think he's ever driven the prototype.
As far as we can tell, he's never raced anything other than a Porsche. And in fact, he started racing Porsches when he was in Formula Renault 3.5.
I hope that's slow motion, otherwise it's going to go bang.
Well, that's yeah. Interesting lineup here for Duquesne as they bring their LMP2 car out. Jonathan Hershey, Konstantin Tereshchenko. Now, is this his first Le Mans Tereshchenko?
I think it is.
I think so. Did he do Road to Le Mans last?
I don't think he has.
Because he's done European Le Mans Series,
we spoke about Tereshchenko yesterday, and just to repeat, if you didn't hear that, I mean, he did not have the best of reputations either trackside, in the paddock, or indeed in race control. But I have to tell you, he's pulled his socks up this year, and he's been properly impressive in that car.
Yeah, he's quite quick, isn't he?
He's very quick. He was a bit wild, shall we say, but he certainly seems to have kind of found a little bit of maturity, found the key to actually doing well in endurance racing is actually keep it on the island.
And I think quite a lot of that is experience. You start naturally, I think, by overdriving everything, and then if you can back away from that, then you can really start to find the speed in the car. Antonio Felix da Costa, the reigning Formula E champion. We have the previous double Formula E champion, Jean-Eric Vergne, here as well. Sam Bird, Mike Conway, a whole host of drivers in this championship have also raced in Formula E. So there's an awful lot of crossover between the two, and you would think they are so diametrically opposite. But I think it's the mental acuity of Formula E is definitely helping with some of these prototype drivers. There's Alex Brundle in the number 32 United Autosports car. 22 car has been a little quicker than them in qualifying, but both were very quick, Jamie.
I'm just noticing, you see his headrest, and I noticed it in the Jota car as well. You see it's covered in like tank tape.
Right.
The Toyota's not, but the two LMP2 car, I wonder, is that because of the rain or something?
Well, I don't know. All the Orecas, if you look at the Oreca LMP2 car, and let's hear from Toyota. Or not. All the LMP2 Oreca cars, on the right-hand side of the car, the passenger window is a large window. On the drive...
On the higher floor, we go on wet first, and we check the condition. We might come in for testing the inter if you think the conditions are good enough.
And in fact, you can see the same on the Toyota here, with Mike Conway in. The passenger window, there you go, passenger window on the left-hand side of the Bicoles, large. On the right-hand side, much smaller, because it has got the crash protection for the driver on it. And although the Oreca is a left-hand drive, quote, car, so the left-hand window, the one that is visible from our cameras on the outside of the pit lane, is that. You can see the same on the Toyota as well. So you've got an asymmetric window because you've got the driver's crash protection structure built into the door there.
Just like those shots we got of Mike Conway. This is a big race for him, the World Championship up for grabs. But Mike, another of those drivers that has never won this race. He's finished second 3 times. And if you think of those names, even in the modern era, your good mates and ours, Nick Minassian, absolutely should have won this race at some point. Stefan Sarrazin, another. And Mike Conway, 3 times second place overall here. He desperately wants to win this race.
Yeah, and to be honest, he deserves to.
100%.
I mean, he's done a great job. He's a great driver. Yeah, but it's going to go to one of them, isn't it?
And the number 7 car could have won last year. They were definitely in the hunt, but the number 8 car was the one that was leading the championship. It had a certain high-profile driver on board, and they just kind of nestled or nurtured that car to the detriment of the number 7. This year, the number 7 team come here as the championship leaders. The number 8 car on a hat-trick. So Sebastian Buemi, who will go out in free practice in that car, and his teammate Kazuki Nakajima, they have both won it twice in a row now. And of course, the third driver for the last 2 Le Mans was Fernando Alonso. Third driver this year is Brendan Hartley. So it's kind of a little bit like joining the number 1 Audi team as their third driver. I'm with the guys that have won. I'm with the Lucky Charms. You know, is it going to work for Brendan, or is the number 7 team our championship leaders in World Endurance? Are they the guys that are going to come out on top? Well, we'll know in 28 hours, 29 hours from now. But until then, everything is possible. And with the weather that we have forecast for the weekend, it's due to rain again this evening. Anything might yet happen.
Yeah, so Brendan looking to become the first driver to win Le Mans with 2 different factory hybrid teams. Winning Le Mans with 2 different teams has been done. It's been done, indeed, in the modern era by Romain Dumas with Audi, and then with Porsche, as well as a GTE Pro win, by the way.
Well, Martin Haven, Graham Goodwin and Jamie Campbell-Walter here in the booth. One of our pit reporters who is on shift this morning is new to the team, Alex Legui. Let's have a little chat with her. You've stood and had a look in the Red River garage, Al. What's the story?
Good morning, Martin and co. Can you hear me?
We hear you very well.
Good. Yes, so a few things. Red River they had a very, very long day yesterday, but yeah, luckily they are good to go back out. I think Bonamy was quite shaken up after his crash. He's first to go in the race, so he's a little bit reclusive right now. Had a chat to Antonio Felix da Costa. He said that it's obviously very useful to have this wet session now ahead of the race. Feels like it'll be good. Good years will be good as well. Over and out.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, she wasn't just run over by somebody.
30 seconds to open pit lane.
Although it is getting very busy, a 50-minute warm-up session due to start in around 30 seconds from now. There is somebody in our TV truck every time you see the graphic there that says radio who is pressing a touch key that is refusing to play the clip.
There's a traffic jam we all like, isn't
Pit
it?
exit is open.
Well, listen, everybody
Warm-up has
wants
started.
every second on track they can get. We have had 1 day of running for these cars, and it was all dry and hot. This morning, while it's warm, as race day gets underway with the warm-up, it is damp on the track. It was very wet on the track an hour ago. Luckily, we've had some young gentlemen in a lot of Porsches drying it out while also testing the patience of race control. So let's see what our full Le Mans field of 59 cars can do. Everybody is standing up here in the booth. I suppose I probably ought to join them. Are the hairs on the back of your neck going up, Graham Goodwin, Jamie Campbell-Walter?
It's the sound of the cars coming in the pit lane. It never, ever, ever, ever gets old. And it's just a magical moment from watching, I'm sure, Jamie, from the perspective of a driver that's done this race. It's that, for me, that turn through and under the Dunlop Bridge, that must be a kind of hairs on the back of the neck bristling moment.
I mean, for all the rookie drivers here this year, it's a fantastic feeling. I feel sorry for them if it's their rookie year, though, because
I do.
Part of doing Le Mans the first time is that feeling knackered by the time you start the race because you've had a monster week.
I don't think that's changed.
Well, I think it has, because you've got no PR duties, you've got no Friday in the town for the parade, you've got no scrutineering in the town. It's quite different, and you know, even just walking from your caravan to the paddock or your motorhome or whatever, you find yourself signing at least 10 autographs, and you're just now walking, aren't you? You're just walking there and walking back, not really talking to anyone because you've got a mask on and so on. So it's quite different.
Imagine, though, if this is your first Le Mans, when you come back next year,
And you're like, holy moly.
absolutely.
What's happened? Am I famous?
It is funny, actually. The one thing I think that freaks all rookies more than anything else at Le Mans is Friday in the city.
Yes.
Everybody, I mean, everybody, all the American drivers especially, come and they go, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this. Well, nobody has. There is nothing like it. But, yeah, to come here, well, not to come on a Friday or Saturday beforehand for scrutineering on a Sunday, but to travel on a Tuesday before track action starts on Thursday, that's a very different Le Mans.
One of my absolute joys of this Le Mans week in normal times is the face and the reaction, not of the professional drivers, but the gentleman drivers who experienced that for the very first time, because that is something truly special. For maybe the only time in their lives they truly are celebrities.
Yeah.
And that's why they want to come back.
Absolutely.
And even for the pro drivers, you know, the level of adulation is unparalleled anywhere else in motor racing.
There was a guy a few years ago, massive interest, gentleman driver, but the massive popularity is Dempsey.
Dempsey, who's he?
Don't know.
Patrick Dempsey.
He's not done much since Le Mans.
That's Hollywood guy.
Some old chap.
Some old boy.
Well, you saw Michael Christensen there watching from the Porsche garage as his teammate just skated underneath that 83 Ferrari very briefly. And, you know, this is what Hugh Chamberlain meant when nothing good happens in warm-up. You might learn a little bit, but the potential for destroying the car within hours of the start of the race without, you know, 24 hours to rebuild it is enormous. Yellow flags are out here. Who's gone off?
2 cars, I think. A prototype, but I didn't quite see it.
Somebody in the barriers.
Could
Yellow
be
flags down at Marshall's post 25.
Could have been the Algarve Pro car.
What, the 25?
Yeah, the white. It was a white prototype.
All right, well, we'll
Could
see.
be a Rebellion.
That's John Falby if it is. Rebellion. Oh, both cars are out there at the moment. We've
Car
got
39 is stopped, we're being told.
Right, that is the Graf car, the So 24 has by Graf.
Yeah.
So that's a catastrophic mistake. I mean, you're on your out lap. I've got to say, the track is actually very dry. So I expect to see most of the cars do just literally a lap or two and then come back in, because most of the tyres that I saw going on the cars were wets.
It is the Graf car.
Full wets. But this is definitely not full wet condition, and you've got they're all putting, no one's run on wets so far, they're all putting on brand new wets, and a brand new wet in this condition is just going to be chewed up in nanoseconds.
That car, it wasn't in the barrier, it had turned back around. I wonder if he's just stopped.
Or just gone straight?
Yes. Oh, there it is.
There
it's
he
in
is.
the background. So, yeah, he's just gone straight on.
Yeah.
Found the little bit of tarmac on the right of the gravel trap. And Jamie, low tyre pressure means low tyre temperature, which means they're like mahogany rather than like sticky chewing gum, and so he's got no grip.
So they will have started with a very low pressure for the wets because the wet tyres will overheat in these conditions, so they've started slightly too low in theory, and as he gets going the pressure will come up to an acceptable level. But the team will not want him to go on any curbs or anything whilst the pressures are too low, because that's when you can damage the tyre.
The car will bottom out as well. Now the other thing is, of course, we heard Toyota saying we might try the intermediate if you think that's an option. I think everybody now will want to try an intermediate. Yep. And especially, Graham, I would think the Goodyear shod runners in LMP2, because they believe the intermediate might be a real key to them over their Michelin rivals in mixed conditions. And this is exactly the kind of running they're thinking of, when it's not streaming wet, but when an intermediate transition is almost as good as a slick.
Absolutely. I want to find out where the grip is on this circuit. A good shot of Nick Tandy on the fabulous retro Goodyear shirts. They're doing the rounds in the Goodyear teams this year, and yet they will want to know. We've said earlier in the week, Paul Ricard, streaming wet race, and a track that just would not dry. But in the transitional stages of the wetness in that race, the Goodyears absolutely came into their own. Weren't as good monsoon wet, but coming out of wet into dry and out of drier into full wet, they were absolutely magic.
Driver change at the 22 United Autosports car. Felipe Albuquerque did the first lap, and it is now Phil Hansen who is being strapped in. I'm thinking Phil was nominated as their starting driver. Confirmation from Toyota, by the way, that Mike Conway, who's currently out in number 7, and Sebastian Buemi, who's in this car, the number 8 car, they are the starting drivers. So I don't anticipate the other guys getting in. I think they will give Mike and Seb a chance to try whichever combination of nose, tyres and whatever they want to get a feel for this, in case it's like this at 2:30 this afternoon when we roll off at the start.
Just watched through Indianapolis. Curbs are very wet.
There's a bit of smoke coming from that Toyota.
Is it
at the back?
Now, is that because he too has got low pressures and it's dragging? Looking down in dragon speed, what we're seeing here, that's their 21 car. Oh, just running out a little wide. Who's in 21?
Why stopped? It's Juan Pablo Montoya.
That's a bad place to stop, actually.
And that's why he ran out wide, and the Aston was going, where are he going, where are he going, where are he going?
I think he's got going again.
Car 56 being told to turn on its race red light, and that is the pre-Team Project 1 car of Egidio
off for 95 as well.
Egidio Perfetti, Matteo Cairoli and Larry Tenforda. Tenforda has already won at Le Mans this morning.
This is Nicky Team going around the roundabout at Mulsanne Corner to
this
rejoin.
is a more familiar view of the roundabout.
merge.
Indicate, mirror.
This is where Waze is saying, take the 4th exit off the roundabout. Recalculating. That's a first. I've genuinely never seen anybody go all the way round the roundabout.
I was disappointed he didn't drift it, actually.
Oh,
not enough temperature in the tyre or brakes.
Yeah. He tried.
He's just gone, I won't try and turn. Very sensible, actually, because you just loop it and then, look, roundabout.
It's a very different approach into there from the Mike Conway one a few years ago.
Was it the 8 car that you thought was smoking?
It was, and I wonder if he's... we didn't see it, but I wonder if he's put inters on, because...
It's absolutely guaranteed. Why wouldn't you?
And quite a few cars are in slicks. Is that slicks?
Was it slick to medium? That's a slick to medium.
That's a slick.
Yeah. It's with the white band on there. That's a slick intermediate. So I don't know how that works. Obviously, witchcraft.
It's a very soft compound.
Yeah.
So
everyone
basically
piling in now.
Driver change at the Iron Dames. This is the all-female... Oh, I didn't notice it said that across the nose. The all-female car in the Iron Lynx trio. And it was...
the bicolors has just had a bit of a moment coming into the pits. Struggles over one of the curbs, I think, after whether or not he called it late or whether or not he slid on over the curb.
Yeah, probably skated in, didn't he? And that's the other drama. There's the Red River Sport Ferrari. It is the Red River Sport Ferrari, isn't it?
Good
news. That's the other drama with low tyre pressures, Jamie, is, you know, if you straddle the curbs, then you drag the backside. Whoa, 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 whoa.
That's what we were seeing.
Yeah, that was an unintentional pit in, because the pit in is way over to the driver's right.
Oh, I'll come in then.
5 lanes over to the right.
By the way, should add, while we've got a chance with the car just having been on screen, great to see confirmation that Bicolis will bring their hypercar program to the WEC and to Le Mans 24 Hours in 2021.
Bruno Spengler at the wheel of that car. Bruno was the one in the car yesterday with the crash, wasn't he? So Bruno, rookie, I think.
He is a rookie here, the world's most German-Canadian.
Which Ferrari just shot straight across it? It's one of the 2 factory AF Corsa Ferraris. Either James Collado in the 51.
It is James Collado who's in that sector.
Okay, so number 8, Sebastian Buemi's going on Inters to test. They're staying on wet. So Toyota are trying to double their learning potential, and Mike's happy to do that learning because the team will tell the number 7 engineers exactly what they learned from the number 8 car. So there's no, you know, hiding that information. It's really, really important to Toyota to win this race. They frankly don't care which car, so they're going to share that information. Here at Cool Racing, LMP2 car, Alex Kwani, Antonin Bocha and team boss Nico Lapierre.
There is the Algarve Pro car, happily not the car that was in trouble at Indianapolis. But well, at the moment, no serious casualties, 3.5 minutes to go.
Don't even start with that. There's the other.
I did say that out loud, didn't I?
There's the other IDEC Sport car that was damaged in Thursday's action. Friday's action, and no, Thursday wasn't it? They didn't go out on track.
Got to remind ourselves which day's which, don't we, at the moment?
Yeah. And Patrick Pilet being drafted into that squad. As we said earlier, Patrick Pilet has never raced a prototype. He's never raced anything bar a Porsche in the last 13 or 14 years. GT exponent, quite extraordinary achievements he's produced as well.
That's the 11, your International Ligier, one of a number of cars that will have penalties in this race when it gets going later today. We'll bring you those with the bit of build-up to the grid. But several cars, 2 cars will be starting a lap down, the 2 IDEC Sport cars. But a number of cars from penalties accrued in free practice will be having time added to their first pit stops.
It is definitely not wet weather tyre territory. There is only one LMP1 car in the top 28 times, and that is the number 7 Toyota. Then we've got a big bunch of maybe a dozen LMP2 cars, with the fastest GT car, Kevin Estre in the 92 Porsche, 10th fastest so far. And then from 12th on down, Giancarlo Fisichella in the 54 AF Corsa Ferrari. We've got more than a dozen GTE AM cars ahead of the next pro car, which is James Collado's Ferrari in 25th.
82 Risi Competizione Ferrari pulling to the right, to the wetter side of the track, and the 91 Porsche not going by there. Who's in the 82 at the moment? We've not got that on our screen, have we?
No. So they're all on page 2 of your timing screen. By the way, if you are watching at home or wherever you're watching, you can go to either lemans.org or FIAWEC.com and follow the live timing links, and you will see exactly the same live timing that everybody else can get hold of. Still skating around. There goes a slick, because there is not a non-grooved intermediate for the GT category, so slick on the 92 car. Okay, slick, Kevin Estre. Hang on to this one. Do not bin it.
We saw them coming down towards Indianapolis, and actually it was a pretty dry line, wasn't there? So, yeah, and we can see it again there. Look,
and it's definitely brightening up outside, isn't it?
And this is going to be the final opportunity. It's the last lap, 30 seconds to go to the checkered flag for this warm-up session. So just this outlap for Porsche to find out where the grip is in these conditions.
You know, I think Albuquerque just did an install lap and then put Hansen in for the rest of the session.
Yep.
They just want the experienced guy. They've got new everything. Put the experienced guy, just do an install lap. Does everything feel the same? Does it all steer straight, brake straight, and everything else? Right, stick Phil in, let him finish the session.
Because Phil is due to be their starter. He was the one who was down to be the starter. Now, again, whether that all changes,
It's changed. It's
probably depends.
Well,
almost when the cars are going to the grid. If there's a cloud burst, okay, all bets are off. Checkered flag is out. And we now hold our breath and cross our fingers for 4 or 5 minutes. We've counted them out, but Graham, we really need to count them all back in again.
We absolutely do. The one thing I think we all wish for from these 15 minutes is that the 59 starters for the Le Mans 24 Hours in 2020, this most extraordinary of years, have a drama-free start to race morning.
Eduardo's first floppy of the day.
Oh dear.
That's at Marshall's Post 33, which is in the Porsche curves. The floppies are little corner markers. They're semi-rigid plastic that drop into a little groove, a little slot in the ground, and it's there to dissuade drivers from cutting the corners.
Gentleman in the black shirt there, with his back to us now, walking away, was Amato Ferrari, the winner of the 2020 Spirit of Le Mans Award. Extraordinary achievements for Amato, the AF and AF Corsa.
Well, he's running more than half the cars in the entire field, isn't he?
It's 13 cars here. I was looking back, and it's difficult sometimes to remember and to know which cars they're providing technical support for. But since he started here, which I think was about 07, I've tracked over 70 entries for the Le Mans 24 Hours that Amato's team has supported or run directly.
Wow.
Blimey O'Reilly. And it's 13 cars this year, including the 2 Pro class Ferraris.
In 3 separate classes, by the way. Because
3 classes?
They look after the Chetelav.
Oh, of course, yes, an LMP2 car as well.
But he's not related to the Ferrari family.
No, he's not.
No,
no.
Just for the people at home.
No.
Has he got a hypercar program as well?
I'm not saying anything.
No. Okay.
The answer is yes, then.
Because obviously, if you're running cars in all 4 classes, that would be quite spectacular.
It would be interesting if and when Ferrari decide to put politics aside and actually put money on the table.
You can see the rocket launchers there on the front of the Signatek Alpine Elf. Those late introduction this season.
Absolutely. Flamethrower on one side, machine gun on the other.
Well, the good news is the car is back and all in one piece. No dramas there, no dramas for anybody really so far. First car to see the checkered flag was number 52, and the impetus there is, we do not want you to see it again, please, Christoph Ulrich. There were a number of drivers who got penalised or admonished for taking the checkered flag twice in our other sessions.
Yeah, enjoying it just too much.
Yeah. Or not having quite noticed.
Safely back in the garage, the 97 car.
Yep. Again, this is 15 minutes where the team manager just does not breathe. Roberto Lacorte, Andrea Bellicchi and Giorgio Sanaggiotto are the trio in the Chetelaar Dallara, the only...
Oh, something wrong with that car.
No, it's not. That's what they do. Sadly, it is what they do. That is the problem with the Dallara chassis. At certain speeds, the porpoising is just appalling.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an uncomfortable car to drive.
Well, can you imagine what it's like? I mean, you know, we look at it and go, oh, that must be horrible. And I mean, God bless them. You know, they're progressing with the car, and they plug on with it. But you know, for the gentleman drivers in the car, particularly, you know, if Fritz van Aert could talk to them and tell them how much nicer an Oreca is, they'd probably just sit there weeping.
The answer is they will be moving to GTE AM next season in a Ferrari. They've already told us that. They're very proudly Italian. They want an Italian basis for their efforts. And it's very sad. It's a shame. Frankly, of what had been a massive success as a Class LMP2, the inability to move with some of the problems of those initial cars has been one of its failings.
Well, I think it's terrible that, you know, realistically, we've ended up with a one-make class, haven't we? Because it's
20 of the 24 cars here are Oreca chassis, albeit with 2 badged otherwise.
Part of the spirit and history of Le Mans has always been having different cars on the grid. But
one will often outperform the rest, and so you get it. You know, Porsche 956, 962 would be the dominant mark in Group C because it was customer friendly and reliable.
That was in the top class though, and in LMP2, why have a system of let's have 4 chassis? With a freeze on the regulations, and then one of them is really struggling, which we just saw with the Dallara there. And the ACO do nothing about it to give them a break, to make it more easy for them, for their clients, for their customers. These guys have spent a lot of money buying this car.
My view is it's not dramatically dissimilar. There was a process, the Joker process was in place. It simply didn't do enough. And if this is as important numerically a class as it obviously is here, the WEC and particularly in the ELMS, should have been flexibility.
And financially as well, because these people who are paying to come racing in GTE AM and in LMP2 are the lifeblood of sports car racing. I mean, okay, so
otherwise we get to those kind of those periods where I mean, you know, those years through the early 2000s where your creation team absolutely dominated here at Le Mans. Audi didn't have a prayer.
No, but
I'm misremembering that.
Yeah. I remember the first time they changed that gearbox in like 4 minutes or something.
Makes you want to cry.
We were all just like, oh my God,
okay,
wow, look at that. That's it.
Is it too late to learn how to play tennis? Everybody was thinking, So,
and they had this crane system in the garage and everything.
Well, bizarrely, through this race week, I've been kind of reviving some of the stuff we've posted on Daily Sports Car over the last 20 years. And Alan Liss, excellent technical writer, looked into that technology and spoke to the guys behind it. I'll have to look again how quickly, the quickest they ever did it was, but it was remarkable. Worth a read, because it was extraordinary technology.
It was, but for me it was cheating. It was blatantly, let's just change half the car halfway through the race.
It's finding out where the gaps were in the rules and exploiting it.
Well, yes.
Well, and the loophole was closed because clearly, you know, they had never expected anybody to have that sort of foresight and investment outside of Formula One.
Everyone's looking for an unfair advantage. You had Ian Bickerton, come on.
Yes.
Most of our cars, getting back to the plot, and now this is a rarity, I am dragging us back to reality. Most of our cars are heading back in, or are back in. Final car out on track will be the 91 GTE Porsche, which doesn't appear to have taken the checkered flag yet, and so is on its way back in. So they are all heading back in, driver changes and so on being done by the teams as well, because you cannot get enough practice. Just to remind you, scrutineering this week was on Wednesday, not on Sunday and Monday. We had free practice on Wednesday, I beg your pardon, on Thursday. I'm starting to lose track of the days. There was no day off on Friday from track action. We had Hyperpole on Friday, a brand new qualifying setup, super qualifying setup if you like, with half a dozen cars from each of our 4 classes sharing the track. That was entertaining. And then Saturday morning we're sort of back to a semblance of normality vis-a-vis what the program is, where we have morning warm-up and then the cars will go to a very short pre-grid, because of course there won't be hundreds and hundreds of fans and well-wishers and friends and you know, the great and the good on the grid. Cars will come to the grid and we will then start the race at 2:30 this afternoon. An unusual starting time because it is an unusual year, and also because we don't want to clash with the final stage of the Tour de France today. So meanwhile, there's a conversation going off in the background. Graham and Jamie, have you sorted out your...
Yes, well, I just had a quick look at that article about the change to the rear end. Jamie was asking for clarification at one point. The fastest they ever did it was 3 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yep.
Now, we don't know whether or not that was practice or whether that was a full pit stop, including fuel, tyres and Alan McNish getting in the car. But
but if it was, it's refuel the car, change the tyres, change the driver, and half the car in 3 minutes and 8 seconds.
And don't forget that tyres and fuel will have been done on a pit apron, and then the car back into the garage and then back out with a new rear end. So it wasn't a gearbox, it was gearbox, suspension, transmission, everything. It was just everything rear of the engine, unbolted, bolted back in. I don't suppose they really practiced. Look at how many cars did not go out and set a time. 33 of our 59 cars set a time. All the others went out and went, yeah, it's wet, came back in, or didn't leave the garage at all.
I think most of them actually at least did an installation lap.
Yeah.
By the way, happiest news of the morning, 62 car is back safely after its 15 minutes of warm-up, after rebuild.
Yeah, all three of our cars that were questionable and have had enormous amounts of time and effort and manpower and money expended on them will make the start. So all 59 cars that came here have made it through. And the good news is, I think, that the teapot, which has now got gaffer tape over the leaky cracks, may well survive the race. But it will be a final race. It's a swan song for the Tea Shop teapot in the booth. There'll be a new teapot purchased for £1 from a charity shop for next year.
Excellent.
So that is it for morning warm-up then, and the next action on the track here. Goodness, I do rather worry for race control's nerves, because the Road to Le Mans race is coming up shortly, and everybody, of course, will be desperate to try and win here at Le Mans, part of the Michelin Le Mans Cup series that supports the European Le Mans series. And it's the first step on the ladder to racing in world endurance and here at Le Mans. So Toyota with all their boxes ticked and everybody else with the cars back, even the couple that had little excursions, no major damage done. And that is devoutly to be wished by all our teams. So the time for the race to Le Mans isn't due to start for another 35 minutes, and that was probably just enough to allow a little bit of clear up after warm-up, but there shouldn't be any required. A couple of run-offs around at Indianapolis and at Mulsanne Corner, but apart from that, everything okay. Well, there's a very different view of Le Mans. The buildings, the pit lane and everything are the same. The grandstands, the spectator banks are empty. There is not a living soul in a campsite. It's quite a weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, it seems he was holding a lot, so, you know, went down to the end there, but it was still quite high. But it's all okay. Yeah, no real issues there with this, I think. A little bit more out 22 helps, especially with the traffic. But then the cut was quite decent sometimes, especially 23. So if we could have that cut in 23. I know it depends on what happens with the first goes with throttle application. There's a lot more partial with driving.
A little debrief there from Mike Conway, who you saw behind the car chatting to Jose Maria Lopez, but that was a little debrief to the team. They'll go away and have a little bit of a head scratch and decide quite what's going to happen. Well, Pablo Montoya just running out of steam in the number 21 Dragon Speed car. And the car came to a grinding halt, but I think a bit of Control-Alt-Delete. There was another car slowing down there dramatically as well. That looked like the Racing Team Netherlands car over on the right-hand side. Nicky Team decided not to try and make it around to Mulsanne Corner. Go left, around the roundabout. And genuinely, it's the first time I've ever seen that done at Le Mans, but it's much better than going into the gravel. I think that was Roberto Lacorte in the Cetilar car, just having run through the chicane. And the Inter-Europol LMP2 car also getting a bit crossed up coming into the pit lane. But everybody who left the pits for morning warm-up has come back in. A little bit of concern there around one of the United cars. There's the technology that powers LMP2, the Gibson engine, and also powers the Rebellions in LMP1. Different engine, but from the same firm. And now the team really go to work to double-check everything, make adjustments based on what the drivers have learned, and then continue to think about adjustments as the weather changes. It rained from about midnight to 7 a.m. here overnight. It has been dry since. It's now 11 local time. Not really a very sunny day. 100% cloud cover. The cloud's fairly low as well, so it could rain again, and it's forecast to do so. But the track is drying as we wait for the race to start for 2020. For the second time ever in history, we will race the Le Mans 24 Hours in September rather than in June. And instead of the midsummer weekend, well, it was a hot few days leading up to the race, but it does look a little bit as though summer has ended